if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome to the Oak Road Hatter podcast following Saturday's 5-1 defeat to Manchester City. I'm sitting here with Jamie Castle, who was there at the Etihad Stadium. Jamie, how are you?
Yeah, feeling good. Back-to-back pods, just me and you, so always an honour. It was a good day at City. On the early train up and had a few drinks. Sort of, I had a wander around Manchester. And then we didn't get back till like the last train, so I sort of had a nice meal in Manchester in the evening. So made a good day of it, which was nice. Clearly the football went exactly as expected, and we'll expand obviously on that in the next 40 minutes or so. But yeah, all in all, a good day out.
I'm under the watchful eye today of producer Mark after a few little cock-ups, let's just say, during the last episode. It was my first one back in a while, and let's just say Mark had his work cut out for him in terms of the edit. So Mark, I'm going to do my best to avoid any of that today. Jamie, let's speak the game itself. When you consider the injury situation, I know we keep talking about it, but when you have an injury situation as, prolific as ours, it's something you have to keep mentioning. You consider the injury situation, you consider the fact we went 1-0 down to a really dodgy deflection after 65 seconds. It wasn't awful. It wasn't a defeat that was as bad as the scoreline suggested.
No. If you break it down, I think before 2 p.m, you're always, I guess, speaking a bit in jest in terms of, how many is it going to be? 10, 11, 12 nil? Or is the 9-0 at threat? And then when the team news comes out and you see basically the first four names along the lines of something being Onyedinma, Burke, Hashioka, Daiki, you think, okay, we've got one centre half on the pitch, and then players in any order that really probably aren't back four players, they're back five players. Hashi and Daiki being wing backs by trade, and then Fred being a winger who made his very first game for us. I think it was left wing in a 4-2-3-1 against Peterborough in that 3-0 game. So to see the first four names on the team sheet, you start to fear a little bit. And then when the game starts and Hashi, bless him, to essentially be knocked out by an Erling Haaland sort of half over the head kick into his face and score what is, it's been at least 2 own goals. I think there's probably a third in there somewhere as well, to start off his Luton career, having only been at the club for 2.5 months. You feel for him as well. But yeah, after a minute and a half, you think your heart just sinks and you fear the worst. But big credit to the lads out there. Obviously, in the end, 5-1. I don't think it was a flattering result. I think City were well worthy of their goals, and yeah, it was a dominant performing. It was a dominant performance from them. But huge credit to not go under at 1-0 so early, and to manage to get to half time and still win the game and cause a bit of a threat. I don't want to over emphasise the threat going forward, because clearly we didn't do enough to score in the first half, but we did break and have some nice sort of transitional play a little bit and tried to break City's last line. So again, nothing to shout home about, but just sort of areas of promise a little bit. So yeah, all in all, that first half was I was very, very pleased with.
We haven't been on the end of too many 5-1 defeats, at least not sort of in our lifetime of supporting the town. But, you know, I think it's probably a first where we lose 5-1 and you can't actually be too disappointed. Manchester City evidently are, as we've mentioned a lot of times on this podcast, best team in the world. And you just think of where we were, the players we had filling gaps. It's not too disappointing. It was one where you don't like to write off games before they're played, but our survival was not based on playing City away. It's not one that we could have taken much from, if that makes sense. And 5-1, we move on, and Rob will be there tomorrow, making sure that everybody's there for the fight, for the 5 games that really do make... that they are very much cup finals, and we've said that about a lot of games this season, but these really, really are. It's a game as well that probably eliminates the possibility of staying up by goal difference. So, let's hope it's done on points and not on the dreaded goal difference. We'll start with, in terms of the players, Jamie, we've mentioned him already, Daiki Hashioka. He's a player that came in. He was, the only first team signing in the summer. Probably add Taylor Harris to that now, being on the bench for the game on Saturday. But Hashioka brought in as a right wing back. There was murmurs that he could play at centre back, but that was pretty much with the vision that we'd be playing a back 5, not playing as a left-sided centre back in a 4 against Manchester City. You mentioned as well, there's been a few own goals in there, but ultimately I think he had a decent performance considering what was up against us on Saturday. I think he had a good 90-minute performance.
Decent, I think, is probably what I would say. I wouldn't say good performance. I think all in all, I think it's fair to say that I feel like he struggled since coming in January. Now, not casting any judgments already about the lads. Really tough to move from a foreign league, foreign country, to the English league, Premier League, the best league in the world for the first time. So not only is he trying to, I guess, play up and grow and improve it to a league that was above his standard previously, is tough in its own right. Then to add in the sort of that the foreign national nature to it as well, and signing in January, don't know his living situation, but could be living in a hotel for all we know. We don't know, right? So very, very tough circumstance to come in, and then to add to that, he's probably played in at least 3, maybe 4 different positions in that time as well. He's definitely played at wing back, because that's where you started against Bournemouth. You played, as you say, centre half and a 4 against City. Definitely played centre half and a 3 as well previously. So that's at least 3 different sorts of positions that he's played in for us, when he was basically signed as sort of Cabore's competition. So all in all, I think the cards have been stacked against him. So I'm not going to cast any judgments about him as a player until he has his first full season. I think for me, the summer is when we start judging him as a player for Luton Town. But I think all in all, I think I think it's fair to say that he has struggled so far this season. I think he was okay. I think to bounce back from what was a tough start, as we said, concede that ball sort of hitting his face and going in for another own goal. Not his first own goal for the club. A player like that can crumble, especially against the likes of your Haalands and your Alvarez's and your Doku out wide as well. So it's not an easy environment to react. So I think big praise for the way he reacted and the mental strength to put in a decent performance, and not crumble, and still, I think there's no doubt about work rate. He's you can tell in the way he plays, the way he runs, that he's giving his all, and that at this point is all we can ask for. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there on Hashi, because as you said, I don't want to judge him too much as a player until the summer. Next season is when we would rightly start to judge him as a player for Luton.
I think I'm a little bit more positive about Hashioka and what I've seen so far. I think just generally the way he approaches, he pressed Haaland really well, I think, and you do not get a harder challenge in world football. We saw how he attacked Kenilworth Road and scored 5. He sort of really backed himself, and you mentioned mental strength that he showed, and I think that showed massive amount of mental strength. The fact that he went toe-to-toe with Haaland in certain situations and was aggressive and was bold, did not stand off. And I think as much as that's something that Edwards is trying to drill in, when you come 1-on-1 against someone like Erling Haaland, it's quite easy to falter and try and defend that little bit deeper, allow him that little bit of space. But Hashioka, for me, it's a mad situation that he's been thrown into. And it does not help whatsoever when you're on the bad end of luck, which he has been, at least that own goal, even the one against Spurs, I think it was. I like him a lot from what I've seen so far, and I know that's probably against the general consensus, but as you say, I think once we get a full pre-season into him, continues to adapt, and we get our players back fit, and he can play in the position that he was brought in to play, I think we'll see the very best of him. But yeah, whether that's in the Premier League or the Championship, we don't know at this stage. Fred Onyedinma, Jamie, I still think back to that day at Tottenham where he was named on the bench, and everyone's jaws dropped, completely forgetting that there was a possibility he could play for us. I think he had a really, really good game against Bournemouth. Tasked with coming up against, in my mind, the second best 1v1 attacker in world football in Jeremy Doku. Had his work cut out for him, and I think Doku had a very good game, but I still think Onyedinma did well to limit Doku to what he did. It's a weird one because Doku was still very, very effective, but I think he could have been even more impactful if Fred wasn't there. I don't know if you agree with that.
No, 100%. And I think just first of all, looking at his wider performances, to think that he's come in and the 4 games he's had now is Spurs, Arsenal, and then Bournemouth and City. Like 3 of those 4 games obviously being incredibly tough games. Obviously Bournemouth as well was a tough game, but clearly not that Big Six comparison. But the 4 games that he's had so far, I've been really impressed with him at wing back. Again, not his main position, but probably his rightful position in our current sort of tactical setup. Definitely he's very a Chirag Bene sort of player if you were to compare the two. So given that we're missing Cher, he's almost a perfect replacement for him, I think, at the minute. And yeah, for 70 minutes he managed Doku really well. And let's not forget that Doku only really caused an impact in the last half an hour. Okay, yeah, Doku looked lively in the first half and first 15 of the second half, but it was only when Fred was getting tired, right? And this is a player that has been in League One for half a season, has been injured for most of January and coming back, so probably still isn't fully match fit. Almost, if you look at where we were as a club after Game 4, Game 5, we had players that were clearly looking a bit not unfit, but sort of a bit tired early on in the games, and it's taken them this long to really get up to speed. Fred's going through that transition now. He's going through that transition in March and April. So yes, he looks behind it from like a fitness perspective and a stamina perspective, but in terms of a performance, when he was as an equal to Doku, I think he managed him really, really well. Now, when Fred got tired and was unequal to Doku, because Doku obviously has that match fitness, that match sharpness, then yeah, Doku ran a bit of a riot. But that's no shame for Fred at all. I think he was outstanding at the weekend. There was that one highlight that even Match of the Day picked out on Saturday evening where he just managed to mark Doku out the game, win the ball back, and then sort of start a transition. So yeah, all in all, very, very happy with Fred, and he will be a big part of our running. Hopefully Chio comes back, but if not, we've got someone like Fred there. Clearly we've got Kabore as well, who may need to transition into that sort of right side of the centre half if we have any further centre half issues. So I definitely see Fred. In my mind, obviously having just spoken about Hashioka, for me, I pick Fred at wing back over Hashi at the minute. Just given what he would give us in the overall play going forwards and just defensively in terms of that pace as well. Because the players that he has to come up against in this league going forward, so you've got like potentially like a Neto or potentially an Mbomo or a Vissa, players like that Fred can more than handle, I think, in the last 5 games.
And we'll move on to arguably the only player that played in his natural position in that back line, and that was Reece Burke at right-sided centre-back. And I know people say Doughty at left-back, but I think we've grown to know that he is very much a left wing-back in a 5. In a back 4, it's a different kind of question. But Reece Burke playing, alongside Hashioka, a right wing-back at left-sided centre-back, and Fred, who we've just discussed at sort of length there, is a winger or at the very deepest, a wing-back. It was a lot of pressure on his shoulders in terms of marshalling that back line and being the real leader there. I think bar an early opening that saw De Bruyne slip through Haaland, a little bit of a miscommunication. I think he had a really strong game as well. And again, I know we're speaking about a central defender who let in 5 goals basically, but I think he had a very strong game from sort of a defensive standpoint, and the fact that as we just sort of mentioned there, had to marshal a defence that would never have played together. Even if there's been 3 or 4 injuries, you wouldn't expect that back 4 to line up for Luton Town. So a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I think he delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you were absolutely spot on in terms of, I think had a bit of a lapse in the opening 90 seconds, but when Haaland got behind him. But I think Rob mentioned as well about that in the post match. I think the whole team just got a bit too brave and just sort of pushed a bit too high up, which exposed Reece a little bit. But yeah, I mean, as you say, it feels a bit strange to praise a defender in a 5-goal defeat. But if you look back through the 5 goals, you've got the own goal, not Burke's fault. The penalty, not Burke's fault. You got the corner that came out across to Kovacic and was obviously a great strike, not Burke's fault. Doku beating Fred 1-on-1, not Burke's fault. And then Vardiol sort of outside the box, top left. So none of the 5 goals were Reece Burke's fault. So I think for me, I don't want to say flawless performance, because clearly they had a lot more chances than just those 5, but he had a very, very good performance and comes out of the game for me with about like an 8 out of 10. I think just given the circumstances, given, as you say, he was the only recognised central defender in a makeshift back 4, sort of without Ted Mengi, who has been an absolute monster for us at the back, sort of captain material at the back for us. He to put in that performance as he did without someone like Mengi alongside him, deserves big credit. So yeah, let's just hope that his hamstrings stay intact the last 5 games.
We're going to head into a short break, but before we do, we're gonna, I'm gonna call on you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I hate these calls, but Jamie and producer Mark make me all the time. Before we confirm our survival, we want to hit 600 subscribers. So please help us do that. We're going to head into the break, but stay tuned because we've got Pelly, Ruddock and Panzu to talk about, and also the wider Premier League table and the scores that were also played out this weekend. We are back for part 2 of today's episode, and as promised just before the break, we are going to talk Pelly, Ruddock and Panzu, a player we know and love at this club. 400 appearances up for the town. Incredible achievement, especially when you consider the what people call loyalty in football these days. There, if we are to believe reports, I think there has been opportunities for him to move on, but he has remained a Hatter, become the 11th town player to reach 400 appearances for the club. An incredible servant. Jamie just reminded me there, 7 of those appearances came on loan, 393 as a full-time Hatter. Jamie, he nearly came on and scored as well, Pelly Ruddock. He's a player that I've always said has grown into divisions as we've gone up the ladder. He's never been at the start of the season, the first name on the team sheet, but I think he throughout League Two, League One, Championship, adapted really, really well and become an integral part. You think back to Nottingham Forest game and some of the recent appearances he has made. He's showing signs of that again, I think.
Yeah, he's developing really well. I think earlier in the season, again, like a lot of our team struggled. But yeah, I think that Forest game, as you mentioned in particular, almost felt a bit of a turn for him. Obviously frustrating that Murier put him in the stands and caused him to come off, right? But overall, I think he's growing, and he's got 5 games now to try and get that Premier League goal that he so deserves. And God, I hope he gets it. Imagine if it's the goal that keeps us up, it would just sort of come full circle. But no, you run out of words really to talk about Pelly. He's a legend. There's nothing short of a legend. And yeah, probably a few months ago, I'm probably thinking, if we do stay up, is that the end of Pelly Ruddock and Luton Town? Does he move out and find a sort of a starting spot at a team in the Championship, or do you sort of make him stick around for another year, or see if he gets a chance to get into that Luton team? And I think the last few performances, I'm actually feeling fairly positive about him at Luton next season if we do stay up. Will he be in the starting 11? Well, on the assumption that we keep Barkley and probably sign someone else, then no. But I would certainly keep him around, and he's showing massive improvement to what he did earlier the season against like the Brighton and Chelsea games in particular. So yeah, I just hope that we do stay up, just to try and give him some more games in the Prem, because he deserves it. And yeah, I can't wait for that testimonial. Hopefully at Power Court, because by the time Power Court happens, he's probably going to be sort of 32, 33. So hopefully, if he does move on by then, we can just do that testimonial at Power Court for maybe the opening game for the new stadium.
And Jamie, a lot gets spoken about the club culture at Luton, the togetherness and all those kind of words and phrases. Pelly Ruddock is a massive, massive part of that. You just have to, listen to Rob's interviews ahead of match day. You can always, it's like bingo. You can always count on Pelly Ruddock making some sort of noise to hinder the interview and to turn heads. If you speak to any of the players as well, when they've done their own interviews as well, they mention Pelly as being a big part of either helping them out in terms of when they first arrived, or being part of that club culture. So in terms of his contributions on the pitch, they've been very, very important, but off the pitch as well, the bits that we don't see as Luton fans, it's also massive. And he's just such a likable person. I couldn't wish any other player making 400 appearances for Town. He is truly Mr. Luton Town, and I can't wait for that testimonial, as you say. We've spoken a lot about the City goals, but there was one for the Town, and of course it was well taken by Ross Barkley. A City error, we capitalised. We were pressing high, forced the turnover, but it was also a lackadaisical on their behalf. Barkley still had a lot to do, and he'd done it expertly and gave us somewhat of a lifeline. I don't know if that was the general feeling at that point, but no. 3-1, generally, you do feel like you're in the game. What was that goal like live?
Yeah, great goal, as you say. I think it was Nunez that took the touch. It's a bit of a heavy one, but but Barkley, again, being brave. Like, look, you're 3-0 down away at the Etihad. A lot of teams just sit in and don't be brave and just, you know what, let's just try and keep the score down. But to be brave and pushing high from a goal kick just shows everything that we're about this season in particular, and the side that Edwards is making us become, which is really exciting. So yeah, Barkley, I mean, great to sort of do Diaz, or almost sit him down and finish past Edison. Far from easy, and you said in an interview, I think earlier in the week, he wants to add goals to his game now, because for all his unbelievable performances, he's obviously lacking a few goals, and if he can add some goals to his game, then he's the most complete midfielder that I've seen at Luton Town, if he can add goals to his performance. So he's got 5 games to do so, hopefully, and he can get a few more. And yeah, it's, as you say, it's just to take the performance on the whole. Obviously, 5-1. It's tough to speak highly of a game like that. Clearly, when you lose 5-1, but if you were to receive all the scores that happened this season back in August, and you sort of go down the list, you don't really flinch at seeing City away lose 5-1, do you really? You just think, oh yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But what happened after that? It's just a result that just is one of those, given where City are. So just to add the context of the players that we were missing as well, it just sort of makes it an even more impressive outcome and performance. And it's for me, I think it was actually one of the perfect games to go into this sort of 5-game mini league run-in. A game where no doubt the players learnt so much in terms of being brave at the best side in the world at the minute, and to play the way that they did at times. You know that if you put in that level of performance for the last 5 games, you probably will get more wins than not, because the things that those players do in terms of City players, you're not really going to see too much in the last 5 games. So yeah, I think it was a good time to play City for us and the players, just to give them that bit of belief and confidence in being in that away end at the end. And you just felt everyone had that sense of, come on, we can do this, we can do this. Got 5 games to go. Forest didn't win. It was one of their home games that was a very winnable home game. It's a game that if that was us, we'd be like, we need to win this. We need to win this if we want to stay up. So the fact that they didn't win it as well, and we got away with no injuries, just that feeling was we can do this, we can stay up. We're only a point behind with 5 to go. We've arguably got the easier run in on paper in terms of fixtures. So just that all round belief amongst the group now, and I truly believe sitting here right now that we will do it, and we'll get enough points to stay up.
And it's certainly a weird one, and we'll move on to sort of the wider Premier League table, the other scores from game week 33. But you mentioned there Forest not taking advantage of that home game. I actually think our percentage chance of staying up went up this weekend. There was no expectation whatsoever for us to get a point against City or all 3, whereas you think Nottingham Forest have squandered one of what was 3 home games, so now down to 2. 2 home games and 3 away for them, for a team that have been heavily reliant on their home form this season compared to say us. That might not be completely true, but they certainly have been heavily reliant on their home form. The majority of their points makeup has come from home points. They all feel that they have squandered the opportunity to take a bigger advantage. You just think that we've now got the advantage in terms of having those 3 home games, and you look at the 5 individually as well, and you think there's every belief that we could attack each game to win the game. And I think that's the beauty of these next 5 games, is that you feel that 3 points are on the table in each one. Let's run through the other scores that would involve the relegation pack. It was Liverpool 0. This is today on Sunday. Liverpool 0, Palace 1, Forest 2, Wolves 2, Brentford 2, Sheffield United 0. There was also Burnley 1, Brighton 1. sort of seeing how that played out, Jamie, would you say now Brentford and Palace are probably not unreachable, but they're probably outside of that pack? We're not looking at them with the same eyes as we did maybe last week.
Yeah, I mean, great result from Palace today. That sees them safe. What, they're now 32 points. So yeah, I think that's them safe. Brentford for me was the frustrating one, I think, because I still think they are a good side and they may have had enough to stay up, but given the fact that they come to us, if they drew to Sheffield United at the weekend and then come to us and we beat them, then they start to get a bit nervy. So yeah, I think now they're both safe, which that rules them out. But it now says to us it's Everton or Forest. Just catch one of Everton or Forest and we'll stay up. Clearly there's the asterisks there next to them. But as long as we get the right side of them come May the 20th, whatever it is, we'll let whatever happens in the courts play out and we'll go from there. But for me, Brentford and Palace are done. They're safe.
And then Burnley as well. Burnley drawing 1-1 with Brighton. It keeps them 5 points below us with 5 games to go. I think if they were to win that one, I think we'd be looking at them with a little bit more nerve attached to it. But I think the fact that ended in a draw can only be a positive. Sheffield United as well losing. It doesn't look like a late sort of rally is coming from either of those two teams.
No, I think Sheffield United have looked really improved in recent weeks. So fair play to them over there. In an ironic way, I want them to stay in it as much as they can because that they host Forest in a few weeks. So if they're still fighting for survival, if that could be the game where if they lose, that they're confirmed to go down. So I'm hoping that they can sort of stay and start getting a few points in the next few weeks. So that game for them it becomes massive. So yeah, probably realistically too little, too late. But for our sake, it's important that they stay in the mix for as long as possible. And then Burnley again looking improved, looking probably a bit less flaky defensively. Obviously, bar the Muric Howler at the weekend. But yeah, I think a draw's good for us. I think, as you say, if they win, that puts them 3 points behind. Knowing that they host Forest on the final day, which could still be an absolutely gigantic game for both teams. But yeah, again, at the minute, you probably think too little, too late. If you've only got 20 points from 33, it's hard to think that you're going to get 12 or 15 points in the next 5, right? Just by laws of averages.
And just looking at the table now, it's Everton in 16th, 27 points from 31. Forest in 17th, 26 from 33. Then it's us, 25 from 33. Burnley, 20 from 33. Sheffield United, 16 from 32. And you look at that, and I think the first thing you'll notice is Everton, 2 games in hand, but they do have probably one of the tougher run-ins. They've got Chelsea tomorrow. It would be today when this comes out. You think that's very important in terms of keeping Everton on that 27-point mark. It would be massive going into that sort of mini league. Then I think Saturday or Sunday next week, it's Everton versus Forest, which again is massive, especially if we can get all 3 points against Brentford. That game, you don't really know which way you want that to go, Jamie. But if you had to side with a team to win, where would you like to see the 3 points go?
I think if I side with a team to win, I would pick Everton, just because Everton is a team that we can personally control by beating them at our place. Whereas I think with Forest, just for them to win, we can't pull them back. We can't take points from them. So let's assume on even games, right? They're on 33. Obviously, they're not on 31. They go to Chelsea Monday night, and then their other game in hand is Liverpool at home. So you would expect them to get max 1 point from those two, although Liverpool do look a bit shaky at the minute anyway. If Everton were to win, that takes them to 30, and we beat Brentford, that's 28. At least us still winning takes us to 31 and takes us above them. So if one team had to win the Everton Forest game, for me it's Everton. But clearly the point would be the absolute utopia result for us. Clearly, let's not get in that rabbit hole of looking at every other game and what potential outcomes are of other games. Let's focus on ourselves. We know if we win 4 games out of 5, it's probably a very good chance that we stay up, because we'll be on 37 points. So yeah, let's focus on ourselves. But Everton Forest, still, obviously, it would be naive to not think and talk about that game.
Well, that is it for today, Jamie. A big thank you to you for joining me. A big thank you to everybody watching and listening at home. As we've mentioned a few times, it is Brentford at home next weekend. It's a massive one. Listen out and watch out as well for our preview that will come later this week. Looking at the table, we can still drag them into the relegation battle. Those 3 points they got at the weekend might not be as valuable as we sort of anticipate at this moment. Until our next episode, it is goodbye from us.